Welcome, everyone, to our interview series with Nature-Based School Founders. I am your host, Meagan Duncan, founder of Connected Kids Thrive, Positive Behaviors Guide for Nature Schools. Today, we have Shanda Fitte with Faline's Farm and Nature School. And I cannot wait to dig into her story. And as you all know, no matter how you serve kiddos, you're going to get so much value from this conversation, whether you are another founder, whether you are an educator, a parent, maybe you're thinking of starting your own nature school, you're going to love this conversation just as all the other conversations. And also, as a positive behavior tip, I'm going to front load and let you know exactly the questions that we'll be going over today. So we're going to talk about what inspired you to start your program in the first place. We're going to ask you about a challenge or a behavior shift you've overcome that has helped shape your journey. We're going to ask you about maybe a word or a piece of advice that you wish you would have known earlier that you can share with us. And then also a wish, a takeaway that you hope our audience members take away from our conversation. And we may get into some behavior. That's been a fun addition that we've included. So with that, will you please introduce yourself and we will dig in.
Yeah, thank you, Megan, for having me today. My name is Shanda Fitte, and I have been in this profession for 35 plus years. I went right into nannying and college right out of high school, and yeah, so I'm a mom of three grown children. My daughter lives in Alaska, and my one son lives in Twin Falls, Idaho, and then my other son is still in college. And I have three grandbabies and one on the way. So that's like my love right now. I love being a grandma. It's so fun. Um, I got out of college and we moved back to our hometown. I'm from Salmon, Idaho, which is a pretty rural area, and it's just wonderful for hunting and fishing and all those things. And we knew we wanted to move back and serve our community. So we came back. Gosh, it has been 35 years ago, just about. And we opened a daycare, just a little in-home daycare. And then we kind of transitioned to a bigger center. There wasn't really any there was one other daycare at the time in Salmon. So we opened up a daycare. And for 27 years, we had a traditional daycare. I had, lots of kids, 60 kids and 6 employees, and, did kind of the traditional thing. However, my backyard was super, super magical. I would say I'm a nature inspired teacher. So even though at the time when I was running my traditional preschool, I wasn't um, as nature inspired as I am now. We had a really magical backyard. It was beautiful. We had chickens in a garden and lots of flowers and an outdoor block center. And it was really, really magical. Lots of trees, and it was just beautiful. And so after 27 years, I'd run into some health problems, and we just were like, what are we going to do? I can't keep working these many hours. It was, 60 plus hours a week. And it was a lot. There was no other daycares by that time in Salmon. And I tried to like mentor people and, help them get their daycares going, and they would do it for a little while. And, some of them in home centers have stuck, but it was tough. It was really a tough decision. And we started praying that, we would figure out what we're supposed to do and God would show us. And 2 weeks later, some people came and said, we'd like to buy your building and put in a charter school. And so we were like, what are we doing? Like, is this real? So we did. It was a really tough choice. And so we sold the building, and then I sold a lot of the supplies and stuff to another center. And so then after that, I was like, I'm not ready to be done. Like, this was my, passion. And we were building a home out of town, about 10 miles out of town. And so after we got the house done, I was like, I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back to work. And so I worked for a nationally funded program in our community that is a preschool program. And I did that for several years, and that's when COVID hit, and it was really, really tough. And I was teaching online, I was teaching through Google, and then when we did go back to class, the kids had their toys in, boxes and, things like that. It was really tough through COVID. And one day I was just like, I gotta break the rules here. I gotta get out of here. And so I did. I quit my job and I did work for another program for about a year, which was really a blessing to me. And then I just said, I'm gonna open a farm school.
Oh,
And so it wasn't exactly what we wanted to do at our brand new home, but we're like, this is what we're supposed to do. And so when we closed our center, I had bought a mini Jersey milk cow, and she just really filled a big void that I had after, leaving my business. And um, so we thought, well, let's just name it our school after our milk cow. So it's Faline's Farm and Nature School. And little did I know that first year, like it was going to be so tough. We had the worst wildfires in our community in the whole Northwest.
oh,
And it was so smoky, we couldn't go outside. And I'm like, I just opened a nature school. We can't even go outside. And it was really tough. That was really a tough time. But I also, a little bit more about me, I also teach trainings online for Idaho Stars for the state training and registry system. And I do a needs-based childcare workshop looking at children's needs. And then I also do a gardening and nature playscape training. I have been doing that one online, which I would love to do it in person because it's more hands-on, but we make it work with, the situation. I'm about 3 hours from anywhere, so it's easier for me to teach online. And then I do another one called Beyond Play-Doh, which is the importance of Play-Doh and clay experiences for young children in the early childhood environment. So, yeah, that's just a little bit about me, and I can talk a little more about my program if you want me to do that.
wow. Oh man, so you have worked in a big center type of setting and you owned your own center type setting and now you're a more intimate setting, which
Yes.
um, I think truly is the most valuable kind of setting for small children is that
Yeah.
more home-like, intimate setting where hopefully there can be some age variances. I know that can be hard to even in a home, more intimate setting, but I just, yeah, I'm always thinking what is the most natural way kids are really designed to be. And yeah, I don't think that, 30 or 23-year-olds are meant to be in one room. Um,
Yes.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's really beautiful.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Part of our vision for Faline's Farm was to come alongside families
Mhm.
in their homesteading journey. And so in our policies, we ask parents to, pack waste-free lunches and
Oh,
try not to have, a lot of waste and things like that. But we also, more in the summertime than in the school year, but in the summertime, we offer every month some type of a homesteading class for them. So we do lunch and learns. We have our county extension office comes out once a month and does cooking activities with the kids. So we invite the parents to come to that. We've done cheese making classes. We did a seed starting class last year. We made pickles. We've done a soap making class, how to plant your garlic, just different things like that, how to make a pie and how to make bread and a sourdough class. And that has been really great because it's brought parents together, and then it's also shown them those homesteading skills and make them think about where their food comes from. And the first year that we were open, we hatched a bunch of baby chicks and baby quail, and we got several of our families to start a flock at home. And last year we got a really substantial seed grant, and so we were able to give all the families a large pack of seeds so they could have their own garden. And I just told them, I said, if you're not going to grow them, just pass them on to another family so they get planted this year. And we, had the seed starting class to kind of teach them about that. And we have a big garden. And I have like little rebags with our logo. And so they can, we can send home the ingredients and the instructions and send home, vegetables each week, or, in the summertime, there's always extra lettuce and kale. But then we make the food at the school too. So the kids are like, oh, we love kale chips. And then I'm
nice.
sending kale home, with the kids. And this year I had a little farm stand on the porch too, which was kind of fun. Parents could like get their milk and get their eggs and baked goods and
I
veggies and stuff.
I
So
love that.
yeah,
I think And many, many founders that have been in this series have mentioned this, and that's the community support for parents. And you mentioned it too. And I think that's something we really need to lean into as much as possible, as making sure
Yes,
parents feel connected and loved and supported, because we've got expectations for them, right?
right.
But to inspire them to meet those expectations, when we provide this beautiful community, it just melds so well, and they want to meet those expectations, kind of like for kiddos, right? When they have
Yes,
adequate, levels of belonging and significance, it can help them meet those expectations. So I think
yes,
that's amazing. And then, teaching them skills, very, very cool.
yeah,
um okay, so what was your overall inspiration? I mean, I guess you kind of shared that. You kind of went through. Do
yeah.
you have any other thing you want to share for inspiration?
When I was working in town, I every day I would listen to the Thousand Hours Outside podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've listened to her podcast, but I
Uh-huh.
just love it. And this kept resonating with me every day as I'm going in to, do my documentation that, Susie can do a puzzle or, this child knows the letter B or whatever. And there was so much documentation and there was so much push for academics. And every day I just keep pressing into these podcasts and I'd find, new ones. And that was where it was kind of a turning point. And I actually got to visit with her on one of her podcasts, and it was neat for me to be able to say, like, you were my inspiration. That's what got me out of traditional,
That's cool.
preschool. And I feel like too, one time I was doing an all-day workshop, and I was doing my spiel and my hands-on learning and the messy play and all the stuff. And I said, "Is there any questions before we move on?" And I had one provider, she raised her hands and she said, you're not doing any favors for kindergarten teachers when you are doing this. And I just was like, and I was pretty young, like I had just started doing trainings and it just kind of caught me back. And I just looked at her and I said, it's not my job to do favors for kindergarten teachers. It's my job to protect and defend a child's right to play. And I think that's what I've done. Like that's always been my mantra.
Wow.
Um, I want to defend a child's right to play. And I imagine myself like, is I don't want to be too dramatic, but I do. I imagine myself with like a shield and a
Mm.
sword and a breastplate. And sometimes there's casualties and people get mad at you or parents leave because all they see is play or I'm not going to meet every family and every child's needs. But I have defended a child's right to play, and I think that's so important as they get pushed into traditional schooling settings, that we preserve that for childhood and we preserve even through the older grades to preserve that ability to be in nature and to be inspired and be outside.
Mm-hmm. I think it was Einstein that said, oh gosh, he said so many things that, defending a child's right to play. But, education should never get in, or school should never get in the
Mhm.
way of education. So that was
Yes,
one.
I
And
love
then,
that.
play and imagination is actually more important than knowledge, because
Yes,
we can pull and make associations. And so definitely
right,
defending that right to play.
right, exactly.
I love that. Okay, ready for number two? What challenge, is there a specific challenge or even a behavior shift within yourself that you can share with us that really helped you along your journey?
Yeah. Um, so like I said, I spent a lot of my career defending a child's right to play. And Idaho was 49th in the nation as far as quality childcare. And that I don't know if those numbers have changed in the last few years, but when those statistics came out, um, there was a big push to improve childcare. And what they did was they brought in a lot of academics.
Hmm.
And instead of looking at the quality of childcare and how we're rating quality, they started looking at, really offering a lot of trainings on like how to set up your classroom and how to, every child needs to learn to read and blah, 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 all that.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, Idaho Stars has done a great job. They have provided a lot of great opportunities for providers. And, I do trainings for them too, but I feel like they panicked and then they started kind of focusing on that academic piece. And I think it's really important as I travel around and as I do trainings, I encourage people to hone in on find somebody who's like savvy in your profession, find somebody that is like the Meagan Duncan of the world. And or Lisa Murphy, she was my mentor for a long time, the ooey gooey lady, and I
Mhm.
was obsessed with her. I went to all of her trainings and I would stalk her if I knew she was at a conference. I would like wait at the door and looking for her, but I gleaned so much information from her. I submerged
Mhm.
myself in her YouTube videos. Sandra Duncan is another one. She wrote Inspiring Spaces for Young Children. Tamar Jacobson, I read all of her books just trying to get, but I think what I found is a challenge that I found is when I had a staff, we could have a staff meeting and we'd bounce ideas off each other. And last February, I was at a very dark place and I was like, I don't have anybody to connect to get
Mhm.
ideas or to share ideas or whatever. And I stumbled upon this nature inspired Facebook page and April Zyko. I don't know if you've seen her
Yes,
stuff,
I
but
love
she's
her.
incredible.
Yeah.
And I reached out to her and I'm just like, I am in rural Idaho. I am in a dark place. I need some help. Maybe it
Hmm.
was two Februarys ago. And it was cold and I was really struggling. And she's like, let's do a Zoom. We popped on. She was super encouraging. And then I attended a lot of her monthly meetings that she was holding. And that was a huge help for me. But being alone and in home, I don't know the percentage of children that are in home childcare centers, but there's a lot. And we get, for sake of a better word, lack of a better word, like burnt out because we
Yes.
don't have that connection as a teacher.
Yes.
So I think that would be, one of my struggles or challenges was just trying to find people to connect to. And in the past year, like I listen to podcasts, I watch YouTube videos, I watch your stuff, trying to read books and just connect with other providers because I am in a town where, and we have had some like gatherings where I've gotten together with providers in my local community now. There's some really good providers that have opened up after I closed. But another thing I think I've struggled with is that balance between crafts
Mm.
and play and nature stuff. And when parents are paying for preschool, like they want to see what you're taking home today. And Lisa Murphy refers to it as like the receipt, they get the craft,
Ah.
and I love a good craft, I'll admit, I really do. But like today we made we were talking about the letter B and we made a paper plate or paper bag puppet that was a beaver. And then we went outside and we took a tote and we collected things that we thought maybe they would build a beaver dam out of. And we got dirt and we piled it up and they all helped build it. And then we pushed it down and we just kept adding stuff and they all helped me. And then we poured water on one side to see if our beaver dam would hold up. So I feel like you can bring nature things in, even if you're doing some crafts, you can still be inspired and do, nature things.
Yeah.
Because I'm in Idaho, it is really cold, and we
Mhm.
do we do go outside every day for a substantial time, but that's a struggle to get them out. But yeah, I just feel like trying to communicate to parents like, yes, this is preschool. They're going to be prepared for kindergarten. No, I'm not doing it the traditional way.
I
So,
I so resonate with you when you talk about the loneliness. When I had my little nature-based school, I was always just kind of surprised at how lonely it was. I'm like, I am doing the most amazing work here with these kiddos. I mean, they can talk about non-Newtonian fluids and viscosities, and we're building dams and we're doing all these things. And I'm so incredibly lonely because we have to keep, professional boundaries
yes.
with staff and volunteers and with parents. And
Yes.
so it was so lonely. I'm actually creating a choose your guide directory right now
Oh,
where
wow.
people can come and get on the directory, especially if they're wanting to support other people thinking about creating a nature school or some kind of programming in alignment with what they're doing. So it's immediately connecting people together. Um,
Yes, I love that.
so yeah, very, very excited about that. There's so many people looking for their guides, and there's a lot of established nature schools ready to help others, help lift
Right.
them up too. So it'll be a really beautiful thing when it's
Right. I love
ready.
that.
Yeah.
Well, and I find like I am a licensed daycare, but I also have kept that nature piece into my curriculum, and especially in the summer, like we're outside all day long. We have,
Mhm.
different spaces that we utilize on our property and stuff. But yeah, I when I watch some of your other videos, I'm like, I'm not a girl boss. I'm not writing a book. I'm in the trenches, and
Yep.
that's right where and you think about the new year and like, what goals do you want to set and what should I do now? And I'm like, you know what? I am super happy just being with my 10 students each day, and I have the most amazing families this year. And I'm just really content. I'm like, I'm not setting any new huge goals for my business. I
Yeah.
love what I'm doing, and it's such a blessing.
And I
So,
would say defending a child's right to play with your shield and your sword is a wonderful goal to keep and go
yes,
nuts and nuts.
yes, for
Absolutely.
sure, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. What is something that you wish you would have known earlier that you can share with our audience? A little nugget of wisdom, a recommendation that
Yeah,
you
I
shared.
I definitely have two of those.
Okay.
The one thing that came to mind right off the bat was taking care of ourselves as
Mm,
providers.
mm,
Like if you ask anybody in the world, like childcare and teaching is one of the most taxing
mm,
professions that you can be in. And I think it's super important to acknowledge and talk about mental health for providers and teachers, um, especially in-home providers, because we don't get a break, we don't get a potty break, we don't get a lunch break, and I think it's super important to give yourself grace and to realize like you might have a bad day or a bad week, or and really start nurturing yourself, even if it's just little things. And I realized about 5 years ago that even though I was defending a child's right to play, I wasn't playing myself.
mm,
And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what my hobbies are anymore. And now that my children are out on their own, my husband and I are kind of like, okay, now what? So we've been making it really a point to, okay, we're going to sit in the sauna tonight, or we're going to just drive up the creek and go camping for the evening,
mhm,
or we're going to just take a drive, or we're just going to rest and really try to make those little special moments of like, hey, we're going to go up to the cabin and we're going to sit up there and drink coffee tomorrow morning. Or, we've tried super hard on our land to make spaces that are really meaningful and special. And
mm.
even if it's just sitting in the greenhouse and, drinking tea or something. But I think that is what I would tell providers, especially young providers: take care of yourself and take care of your health and your rest, and
Mm.
be really diligent about your time and your boundaries with
Yeah,
with others. So
I
and then the other thing that really comes to mind is follow a lot of like daycare pages and stuff on Instagram and stuff on Facebook, and every day there is providers on there like, oh, this parent brought their child to daycare and they had pink eye, or whatever, like, and they're always complaining about the parents. And I think as providers, I discovered this years ago, just start honoring those parents and always give them the benefit of the doubt.
yeah.
99.9% of parents are just doing the best they can. And they didn't mean to, send their sick child, or they didn't mean to forget diapers, or they didn't mean to do those things. They're just trying so hard to be a good parent. And I told a parent today, she's like, you're open on Monday? It's a holiday. And I'm like, yeah, girl, you want to go skiing? Go skiing. You want to go home and take a nap, take a bubble bath, go do that. And start really giving the parents grace and blessing them with just your assurance that it's okay.
Mhm.
Like if you're going to be 20 minutes late because you had to go to the grocery store without your child, girl, do it.
Yeah,
Let me help you if that makes your life
yeah.
easier. And I mean, that wasn't always the thing, and I had little kids and we were off to baseball. Like I was trying to get out the door too, but I'm
Mm.
grateful I'm in a position right now where I can be like, hey, you know what, take your time or whatever. But I would tell providers new in their, or, early in their
Yeah.
career, just start having grace for themselves and for their parents.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for mentioning that. And I think I'm actually coming up with another training, and the number one first strategy is self-care for you as a provider. You
Yes.
cannot give from an empty cup. When we are depleted, we are not our best, and that's when resentment comes in and all kinds of other things we're not so proud of. So that
Yes.
self-care is being buffered and equipped.
Yes.
Exactly. Amazing. And I love
I took a, mm, oh, sorry. I took a
yeah.
mindfulness class, a
Ah,
6 week class this summer, and it was life changing. It
yeah.
was really life changing, and
Okay.
I recommend that for others, just to be able to clear your head at the end of the day. And
Mhm.
so,
And yeah, and then I love to, assuming positive intent for parents. They've all got their own stories and their own challenges that we know nothing
yes,
about. And
right,
it makes,
exactly.
when we look for the bad, we find it. When we look for the
Hmm.
good, we find it. That's just how human nature is. And so
Yes,
I think that's a really powerful message for sure. And,
yeah, for sure.
I sometimes I see those comments too in those groups. And that's one reason why I think intimate, smaller, home-based care is so important because when a child arrives 20 minutes late, we can still give them breakfast if they need or
Yes,
whatever. We can totally honor that child as they come to us.
yes,
It's not school. It's not supposed to
yeah.
be school. And
Yeah,
so,
I've seen some of them. They're like, "Oh, my cutoff time is 9 o'clock. If you're late, then you can't drop them off." And I'm like, "Why? Why? I
I,
don't understand." And I do in my trainings too. I try to tell providers like, look at your rules of your classroom. Why are you having rules? Why do we have to wear our shoes all day? I don't like to wear my shoes all day,
yeah,
So really looking at, your rules
yeah.
and evaluating
I
that and
think it
just
was the
making
ooey.
it.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
I think it was the ooey gooey lady, Lisa Murphy, who said, always be questioning why we're doing everything.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, absolutely, shoes. Yeah, come on. This is a teamwork, a team effort here, not a
Right.
top-down, rules all day
Right.
type of environment. Uh,
Yes, I love that.
but yeah, I do too. Okay, what wish do you have? Actually, I before we jump to the wish, how are we doing on time?
I'm good.
You're
If
doing good?
you're
Okay.
good. Yeah, yeah.
Because these are going a little bit longer than they were initially intended as we add in more fun things to talk about.
Yes, exactly.
Before we jump to the wish, do you have a story? And if you already shared one, that's fine. But do you have a story that really illuminates and highlights the beauty of this work, whether that's from a child, a staff member, a parent, or directly from yourself, an aha moment that really, again, highlights how profound this nature based, slower model is?
Yeah. So after I quit my first job, I worked for another childcare center and they were wonderful. But they opened when I closed because they didn't have any childcare. The family didn't have childcare, but they didn't run it. They hired people to run it. And so they had some policies that were good for them, but didn't really align with my policies. So they had like a three strikes you're out kind of a policy for
Mm,
behavior. And so when I left and opened my program, a lot of the children came with me, which was, I felt bad, but I also was grateful that I had those families.
yeah.
But one of the little boys, he was really struggling. And it, a lot of the content and expectations that were being put on him were not developmentally appropriate. And,
Mm,
boys are real large motor and they like to go and stuff. And I don't remember who said it, but there's a quote that says when you take the child outside, then the trouble goes away or something like that. And I saw that so much with this child. His confidence, we have this space beyond our playground that's called the secret forest, and we put in a pathway, and it goes down, and it's got trees, and we have hammocks, and a little stream that's like super small, but it trickles through and the kids can play in the water. And he built this fort and he built this thing that he called the pirate ship. And he just became a leader. He was no longer having behavioral problems. He just became a leader and he got to where he'd include the kids and he learned how to hold animals. We have a lot of animals with, quail and chickens and ducks
Mm.
and cows and cats and dogs. And he became such a leader. And I think that that is really crucial to look at when we're having behavioral problems, get them outside. And
Mhm.
I love that quote where they say children can't bounce off the walls if you take the walls away.
Mhm.
And it's so true. The kids are so much happier when they're outside. They're helping, they're feeding the chickens, they're harvesting foods, they're
Mhm.
prepping foods for snack. They're eating zucchini because they grew it and they
Ugh.
saw it and they're helping grade it. And that was kind of a turning point for that little boy that really set him up for success once he did go into school a couple years later, was just that, and he became so confident because he wasn't getting reprimanded or timeouts all the time. He just
Yeah.
became super, super confident. And so that was really where I knew I was on the right path. And I've seen it so many
Brilliant.
times since then.
Yes. I
So
something, yeah, when that's why I love working with nature schools is because they've got that box checked, getting kids outside, making sure they've got lots of, that sensory integration of the big motor and the fine motor. And it's not, we can address quote unquote behavior needs when those biological needs are met. We can't
yes,
even think about addressing behavior when the child's been stuck inside all day and at a desk all day.
yes,
That's not even fair. We've got to, yep, get those kids
yeah.
outside for sure. Um,
Yeah, and oh, go ahead.
well, you know what you share too, that and the garden and the farm, the homesteading and other mechanisms of meaningful work. We need to be looking at our
Right.
programs and where are we letting kids find their purpose and meaningful work. So much of their days are just kind of meaningless unless we're giving them
Yes.
opportunities for it to be meaningful. And so
Yes.
I love that. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing.
I had another little boy. His job every day was just to realign all the rocks along the little stream.
Mm.
And he'd block it off and then the water would build up and then he'd move them and that was so meaningful to him. And every day he'd
Mhm.
be like, "Are we going to the secret forest?" And it was just a magical time for him in the summer that he
Mhm.
could just. Or
Yeah.
like children who we had a little girl that was petrified of bugs. And by the end of the summer, she's holding a spider. And
Yeah.
those are success stories in my book. So,
Yes, and then connecting them to the natural world, which helps them connect themselves to themselves, right?
yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love, love, love it. Um, okay, what wish do you have for our listeners here? And remember, our listeners are, I would imagine anyone listening is serving children in some way, whether they're a founder,
Yeah.
an educator, a parent, and maybe someone that's thinking about starting a nature-based school. So, do you have a
Yeah.
wish for our audience?
I just wish that if there's anyone that is like questioning their job right now,
Mhm.
I would tell them that God has something bigger for them if they're struggling. And I mean, I never looked back and I'm just blessed every day. And I think that we need to get creative
Mhm.
nowadays with our educating. And it could be super simple. If you're living in an apartment, maybe there is a community park that you could start doing gatherings at or
Yeah.
something like that. But I would just encourage anyone who is like thinking about it to take that plunge and go for it for
I love
sure.
that. And I think with that, we don't have if we don't have to create programs that have the word school in them. We can
Hmm.
really kids don't need school, these little ones. They don't need anything that resembles school. I think as we get more comfortable in our roles, we can sprinkle those academics on top and they're so
Yes.
fascinated by them because it's not being shoved down their throat. And I
Yes.
think that's whether you want to be, if you have an art gift or whatever your innate gift is, you can create a program around that and your parents will find you and connect with you and
Yes.
appreciate what you're doing. So
Yes.
just like Shanda said, if your heart is calling you somewhere, yeah, take that leap. And that's been the
Yes.
consistent wish all along is
Right.
just do it. for sure.
Yes, for sure. And I mean, I think I see too a lot of you know, when we're talking about behavior stuff, a lot of our behavior that we're seeing is just simply emotional dysregulation,
Hmm.
and they just don't know what to do with those big emotions. I think it's
Hmm.
important that, we talk about feelings and we build those relationships. When I did a speaking engagement and I reached out to Tamar Jacobson and I said, if you could tell rural childcare providers in Idaho one thing about children, what would you want them to hear? And she said, relationships, relationships, relationships. And that's where it all begins, relationships with the children and with the families, and
Hmm.
validating those. And that's when the behavior goes away. The
Yeah.
behavior problems go away when children get validated and they're
Hmm.
recognizing that their feelings are okay.
Yeah, I
So,
love that. Um, okay. And then, what would you say the number one relationship tip, really thinking about behavior and helping a kid feel seen and heard?
mhm.
What I don't know, what would you recommend? Like, what's your when you see a child struggling, what's your number one thing to kind of
Yeah.
meet that child where they are?
Yeah, I always say you're safe and you can handle this,
Mm,
and I always bring them in. And for
mm,
so long, the traditional thing is like, oh, you're going to go sit in a timeout, you're going to
mm.
be by yourself, and you're going to think about how you're going to behave. And it's like, stop doing that.
Yep.
And, we don't want to push children away. We want to bring them in.
Hmm.
And I have we've learned a lot of breathing techniques at Circle
Hmm.
Time. We practice that and talk about when would be a good time for us to calm our bodies down, and talking about calming our bodies. And in the mornings, all the children make a commitment. They say, we commit to keep our classroom safe. And then they go to the mirror and they say an affirmation to themselves, like, you're a
Oh.
good friend, or, you are a champion. That's what I always tell them, you're a champion. And I think that the more you validate those feelings and take time when there's no drama going on, like you're talking about, like, oh, have you ever thrown a fit in the grocery store? And talking about that, then this might be a time for you to use your breathing technique. And in our morning menus, on the back, every month, we have a new breathing technique, and they get to circle which one they want to do and which one they want to practice. But I think letting children just know that they're safe,
Mhm.
and we know when they cry when their parents leave or something like that, you can always say, like, it's okay to cry and miss your mommy. That means you love her, and
Mhm.
just validating those feelings rather than saying you're fine.
Yep. And I
So
agree with you. That is the first, is that, well, actually, well, oftentimes what I recommend is an owl's approach, meaning observe, wait, listen, and then speak to the need of that child. So instead of just rushing in, but 99% of the time, it's going to be a validation of just, and
yes,
that solves the problem most of the time because they know, okay, someone gets me. I don't have to like fight for someone
yes,
to understand me.
yes,
Once
for
we
sure.
once they know we understand, then most things are just kind of more, much easier from there for sure.
Right. Yeah,
Uh,
for sure.
Very, very cool. Well,
Yes, we
we
could
are
talk
winding.
forever on this.
We could talk forever. How can people reach out to you?
So I do not have a website because I just don't need one. But I do have a Facebook page. It's just under Faline's Farm and Nature School. I do still offer trainings online. If somebody's interested in like the gardening and nature playscape one or the Play-Doh one, they can reach out to me through Facebook and I can get them on a list. Typically, when people register, it's through the Idaho Stars training calendar. But yeah, I mean, I can always add people to those rosters and they can pop on with us. And it's like a 2-hour training, but it's got lots of different ideas and photos and things. And I try to tell people, like, okay, if you can't go outside and garden because it was 19 degrees this morning, we grow sprouts in the classroom, and, different things that you can do inside that aren't necessarily like a big old victory garden. So do it on your level. And that's kind of what my training is all about.
I
So
love it. And I'll
yeah,
have her show notes in the description. And then
yeah,
for everyone listening, if you're curious about behavior, right? Because that's what I do. I help nature school teams really deepen their understanding of behavior. So there's unified approaches, really hearing that child's need under their behavior. Yes, taking the walls away is our number one, box check, but sometimes those challenges still occur. And so I help teams really understand and approach kiddos in a better way. So
I
if
love
you're
that.
able, yeah, thank you. It's quite profound. And I was actually asked to do this by another nature school
Oh,
founder. She's just like,
nice.
I see what you're doing with parents because I used to coach parents and
Uh-huh.
now I coach nature school
I
teams
love it.
and
That's
behaviors. So,
awesome.
and
Nice.
I'm at connectedkidsthrive.com, or you can find me on Facebook too. So,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Shanda,
much,
so
Megan.
much.
All
And
right.
thank
You
you,
take
everyone, for
care.
listening. And I encourage you to listen to all the interview series. They're all incredible. You're going to get different nuggets of wisdom, and their stories are so inspiring. And if you are interested in having your story shared, reach out to me and we will feature you. And with that, we will say bye.
Awesome. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody. You're welcome. Thank you.